Control, come in. I found the ancient site.
Marine!
No. Negative. I'm an OWLF specialist.
Oh, sorry. You just look a lot like my old partner. Like, exactly like him.
Yeah, I could say the same about you. That planet-hopping Rastafarian made spaceship decor out of my partner's skull and spine.
Yeah, I've had my fair share of extraterrestrial run-ins. What's my chest look? It's been hurting me all morning.
Just need some gauze. You'll walk it off.
What happens when you cross an 80s movie with muscular wisecracking soldiers being killed by a cunning hunter from space with that same thing, but the alien has a laser and power armor? A hell of a good time. Alien and Predator are two of the coolest and most memorable inventions of the 70s and 80s, and shared a very similar vibe. But they also had a cool contrast. One species is frightening because of its fascinating simplicity and animalistic rage that could humble even the most confident of technology-reliant space marines, while the other is so advanced and intelligent that humankind is nothing more than a big game for it to hunt as a hobby. But both made a career of having gun-toting badasses quaking in their boots. Also, they're kind of both allegories for, like, Vietnam or something. It all started with the fantastic comic depicting a story where young predators would seed primitive worlds with aliens to create new hunting ground and test their mettle. Further fuel was thrown on the fire with this cool Easter egg in the second Predator movie, and from there, it was generally accepted that these two famous movie monsters can and probably have bumped into each other at some point. Eventually, their first major battle outside of the comics and fan speculation took place in the world of video games. There are so many Alien and Predator crossover games that it's become a franchise all its own that for a time was just as popular as the individual series it spawned from. There's so many of these games that it wouldn't make sense to include them in a review of either solo series, actually. Take it away, unscripted livestream Xavier.
Alright, I would like to rant for a second. Every goddamn son of a bitch in the history of the universe commented on both our videos. How could you leave out AvP 2010? How could you leave out AvP 1999? How could you leave out AvP Extinction? Well, okay, which video would they go in if we do one or the other? If it's the Alien video or Predator video, where does AvP go? Naturally, you'd think by the virtue of the fact that there's like fucking 15 of them, that they would be their own video. God damn!
So why didn't you guys cover Alien vs. Predator, the arcade game?
Ah!
God, he's angry. And with that, we're going to take a look at all the clashes these two legendary beasts have had in the world of pixelated blood to see which one was the best one.
So, OWLF, what's that all about?
All four life forms, baby.
That's perfect! So you know about the wet skeleton penis monsters?
Penis-shaped monsters? No, I know about the vagina-faced monsters. What the hell are you talking about?
Oh, they're the worst! Just big skeletal Freudian nightmares that stick you to the walls and kill off major characters between sequels.
Wait a minute. That does sound familiar. That sounds like the other life form the OWLF detailed in those files. Alright, listen up. These bastards have been at this pissing contest for centuries. Let's see what we're really up against.
AvP Arcade. It's like Double Dragon, except the enemies look more like the type of dragon you get in the mail in a very discreetly unmarked box that you don't want your family to see. Released in 1994 and developed by Capcom, AvP Arcade starts with two hilariously proportioned Street Fighter characters being overwhelmed by aliens in an island city on the west side when suddenly they're miraculously saved by a bunch of heroic good guys that have never done anything morally questionable in the name of their culture or to heighten their social status among their alien peers. In this multiplayer co-op beat-em-up, you play as a selection of 2 cool space marines that look like walking action figures, and neato friend predators like my main man, Pussy Hunter. This guy is supposed to be a cyborg version of Major Dutch Schaefer from the original Predator movie. While those body proportions are only slightly exaggerated from the real Arnold, I do wonder why he has a rocket-launching robot arm. The gameplay is your typical beat-em-up with special combos and moves for every fighter. Some have more range, some do more damage, and some are faster. Everyone's got a nice skill and moves to balance out the co-op gameplay. Along the way, you encounter a lot of enemy variety. I like how the Predators can pick up and use the Marines' pulse rifles too. You go through various stages either solo or with a friend to button mash thousands of aliens to death. You even get a boss fight with a few evil Predators and some fights with human soldiers. There's even a section where you ride on top of a moving troop carrier like the Alien Arcade game. Eventually, after battering so many Xenos your knuckles go numb, we discover that the invasion was orchestrated by none other than evil space conglomerate Weyland-Yutani, who appear to be behind every sinister act committed in this fictional universe, including but not limited to Space World War III, Space Ebola, and Space Socks with Sandals. Together, your team of heroes crash a spaceship into the island full of aliens and miraculously stop them from eradicating the human race. But why did you help us, Predators? Because you helped me once.
Get down! His fucking arm just came off! Jesus fucking Christ, his arm!
I heard that this game was intended to be a tie-in for an AvP movie in the 90s, but much like Freddy vs. Jason, we saw how that worked out. It took a while. Check this one out if you're looking for something a little more simple to play with friends. And if you can actually figure out how to get the emulator working for it.
Making its mark as the first video game to bring this feud to home consoles is Alien vs. Predator on the Super Nintendo, developed by Joridon and released to North America in September of 1993. We take control of the Predator after receiving a distress call from the planet Vega 4, where a group of miners discover a colony of xenomorphs living deep underground. And well, let's just say they didn't exactly strike gold. But the Predator sure did. They were planning on hunting measly old humans, but after finding out about the xenomorph's discovery, they're going after the bigger game. Imagine being the humans in this scenario. You either get hunted down by the Predators like fish in a barrel, or discover a much deadlier species to distract the Predators with. That'll just tear your face to shreds anyway. Man, we really do just suck, don't we? Gameplay is in the style of the simple side-scrolling beat-em-up genre that took the 90s by storm. You'll duke it up with waves of xenomorphs across a variety of stages, each ending with a unique boss fight against a special breed of xenomorphs. They all have different characteristics since they've been gestated in different animals. I always enjoy this concept. It's an obvious way of having different enemy types, and it's fun to see variants of the classic Xeno. Plus, we don't have to keep going through the same boss fight against an alien queen. Oh wait, this game has that too. Even though this game has really basic mechanics, it still manages to let the player use a good amount of the Predator's iconic weapons. You can use his plasma caster for ranged attacks, and even charge it up to a special move that calls upon some sort of orbital strike that does damage to everyone on screen, even the Predator himself. Most of the weapons like the Smart Disc, Combi Stick, and Cloaking Device come in the form of pickups dropped by the alien. The fucking thieves. After defeating the alien queen, the Predator is deemed a hero for single-handedly wiping out the galaxy of one of the deadliest species to spawn into our universe. But the Predator does not care for thanks. He'll just come back and rip your fucking spine out when he gets too bored. A couple of months later, the Game Boy version was released. Despite sharing the same cover, this is an entirely different game, having more in common with a Metroidvania side-scroller rather than a simple beat-em-up. Combat takes a back seat. The Predator has one simple melee attack. Classic Predator weapons are available to you, but I never found much use for them. This game is more focused on navigating the map to track down a key that'll open the door at the end of the level. Along the way, you'll encounter brick walls that you have to blow up using bombs found in the level. It's important that you don't accidentally use a bomb when it's not needed, because there are a limited number of them found in the level, and you'll end up locking yourself out of progression. Genius game design there. And that's as far as the Metroidvania elements go. While there are hints of them, it doesn't fully commit to the idea. The bombs are the only integral piece of equipment needed to progress. I think it would have been cool if the Predator was stripped of his weapons at the start of the game, picking them up along your journey, and being decked out by the end of the game, ready to face off against the Alien Queen. Weapons and gadgets could have also been implemented into environmental puzzles, like using the cloaking device to get past lasers, the plasma caster to hit distant switches, and the smart disc to hit targets in sequential order. This game makes the interesting choice of squeezing in a map into the main gameplay screen. I played this on an emulator where I had the ability to expand the image into full screen, so I didn't have a problem reading the map, but shit. I can't imagine how little Timmy back in the day was able to make do with all of this crammed into a small, dark Game Boy screen. The story is nothing we've never seen before. Predators place alien eggs on the planet to set up a big hunting party, they underestimate the xenomorphs, and their clan is almost completely wiped out, leaving you as the sole survivor. Eventually you face off against an alien queen in a less than stellar boss fight. An AvP Metroidvania game is an interesting idea. Sadly, it's never used to its full potential. Once you play one level, you've kinda played them all. Frustrating design choices like having the map be tied to an energy meter that continuously decreases, eventually leaving you with no map at all, and levels that are confusing enough to navigate. That, combined with the Predator's snail-like pace and uninteresting combat, makes this one hard to recommend. I think I've seen this in those files. This is ancient technology beyond our comprehension.
You sure you should be doing that? Who knows what kind of poorly lit shenanigans could ensue?
How else are we supposed to learn a way to defeat them? We have to try. Shit, never mind.
I think the hunt has just begun.
Remember the Atari Jaguar? No? I don't blame you. In the early 90s, Atari was to make a triumphant return with a new console, the ferocious Atari Jaguar, the 64-bit beast to shake the grounds of the video game landscape. 64 bits! That's like more than that! Unfortunately, it's not just bits and other combinations of letters and numbers that don't make any sense to me that make the console. It's about the games, baby!
Okay. Let me ask you a question. How many games does this Atari Jaguar system have? My friend, Atari is the game master! They've got enough games to keep your fragile little mind occupied until the next millennium! Yeah? Like what?
Fuck! The toilet bowl console's lackluster library couldn't compete with the likes of the Sega Saturn, Super Nintendo, and Sony PlayStation. But there was one title that, to this day, many still claim is worth owning a Jaguar for. One game that, it's Alien vs. Predator. What did you think I was gonna say? Trevor McFur and the Crescent Galaxy? The hell is going on here? Shield your eyes, kids. Aliens vs. Predator was released in 1994 and developed by Rebellion, whom would go on to be our pseudo-designated developers for AvP games. After having a couple of beat-em-ups, AvP for the Jaguar is a Doom-style first-person shooter, and more importantly, the first AvP game to feature 3 separate campaigns, one for the Marine, one for the Xenomorph, and one for the Predator, which would become a staple for these games. Each campaign features unique gameplay mechanics and narrative suitable for the character. By the way, the proper order to play an AvP game is by starting with the Marine, followed by the Alien, and lastly the Predator. That is law, and I will not have it any other way. In the Marine campaign, we step into the boots of Private Lance J. Lewis, who's been serving a cryo sentence for bitch slapping a superior officer. I like him already. He wakes up to find that the ship's crew has been massacred, leaving him as the sole survivor. For a game of its time, AvP does an impressive job of instilling a feeling of isolation. The Marine campaign is devoid of any other human NPCs, that aren't dead on the floor at least. There's no music either, only the low hum of the ship's electrical workings, making the moments when xenomorphs jump you from behind or corner you in a vent shaft that much more thrilling. At face value, it's easy to make comparisons to Doom or Castle Wolfenstein. This game adapts the graphical style of 2D character sprites within a 3D environment. Especially when looking at the Marine gameplay, since he's the only character that wields weapons like a shotgun and a pulse rifle, but the comparisons pretty much end there. While Doom is more focused on fast-paced action and keeping a forward momentum, the Marine campaign is much slower. There's a strong emphasis on exploration and survival. Ammo and health items are limited, so it goes without saying that being careless is an easy way to find yourself in a bind. Your main objective is to activate the ship's self-destruct system and getting your ass out of there in an escape pod. Along the way, you'll come across locked doors that require a certain level of clearance, and you won't be able to progress until you find the corresponding keycard. That's all well and good, some good old-fashioned backtracking and exploration. The only problem being that that's easier said than done, since navigating this spaceship is damn near impossible when everything looks the same. It's really easy to get turned around in these environments, with branching hallways that spiral into each other and don't have recognizable landmarks that help keep track of your position in the level. Things get even more confusing when you throw in sub-levels and vent shafts that don't make it clear where you'll end up. The game provides a map, but even then, I didn't find it to be much help. I always use the Resident Evil games as a prime example when talking about exploration and backtracking done well. It's important to have distinct rooms and hallways. That way, the player can easily paint a mental map and effortlessly navigate the world. On top of that, Resident Evil provides a map that's super easy to read if need be. My experience with the Marine campaign boiled down to aimlessly wandering around, shooting aliens, and burning my feet under acid blood until I bumped into a predator and got turned into a not so impressive trophy. I'd say that's a pretty successful run. Moving on. As the alien, you have one simple task: protect the alien queen at all costs. The core gameplay loop of exploring the spaceship and its sublevels remains the same, so unfortunately all the campaigns suffer from the same problem of having to navigate confusing environments. One difference being that aliens can only access other floors through vent shafts, because they can't figure out buttons. Hey, that's not accurate to the movies. The standout feature in the Alien campaign is its respawning mechanic. The xenomorph has no way of regaining health, but you have the ability to cocoon Marines. If you do so, when you die, it won't simply be game over. Instead, you'll respawn on the last Marine you cocooned. That's a really cool mechanic that goes perfectly with the concept of the aliens. Not only is the alien's basic instinct to impregnate anything with a heartbeat, but taking control of another alien after dying plays into the aspect that you're part of a hive mind that's working together. I would have liked to see more AvP games adapt this idea, rather than implementing traditional checkpoints and manual saves. The biggest drawback of this feature, however, is that if you make substantial progress and go a while without cocooning a Marine, if you die, it's possible that the last Marine you cocooned was way back. Now you have to once again make your way through the maze that this spaceship is. But at least you won't have to deal with the Marines you already killed. My experience with the Xenomorph campaign boiled down to aimlessly wandering around, slapping and chomping Marines until I bumped into a predator and was turned into a not so impressive trophy. I'm sensing a pattern here. The Predator has the most versatile gameplay. We start our mission in the Predator ship, which just looks hideous. I mean, it's accurate to how it looks in Predator 2 with its orange tinge, but it doesn't translate all that well here. I forgot to mention that each character has a different HUD, representing different abilities and weapons that your character has. You'd be forgiving for not noticing it here, because the devs decided to go with an orange overlay for the Predator. And with this campaign starting in an orange environment, it's pretty tough to see my equipment and health when it's orange on orange. Aren't you glad I pointed that out? As the Predator, your mission is to hunt down the alien queen. You have access to the classic weapons you'd expect, except you don't get them in a conventional manner. The Predator campaign has what is called the honor point system. Your score depends on how you kill your enemies. Killing them while visible will increase your score, thus giving you access to more weapons. Killing while cloaked will take away points, and if you go below a certain threshold, you can lose those weapons. Hey, wait a minute, that isn't accurate to the movies. If that's the case, then these guys are the biggest dishonorable scumbags I've seen. Look at him. Pathetic. In all seriousness, I think this is an interesting system. Weighing the benefits of staying safe behind your cloaking ability, or risking exposing yourself and taking damage to unlock new weapons, is engaging. A choice I found odd is that the Predator is able to store medkits he picks up and use them manually, while the Marine is forced to immediately use them upon pickup. With the Marine campaign having more of a survival tone, at least in comparison to the two other campaigns, I think letting the Marines stock up on medkits would have made sense. My experience with the Predator campaign boiled down to aimlessly wandering around making not so impressive trophies out of helpless Marines until I bumped into a Xenomorph and a Marine. Together. In the same room. Working together? What kind of horseshit is this? And I'm the one being judged on my honor? I thought this was Aliens vs Predator, not Aliens and Marines 2x the Predator behind his back. Fuck this, I'm out. AvP on the Atari Jaguar has some cool ideas to make each campaign unique and representative of each species. But the confusing level layout hold it back. It's a kind of game that's best played with a strategy guide on hand, which frankly doesn't speak well to a game's design. So, not exactly the killer app I was expecting for the Jaguar, but a commendable foundation for future AvP games. Alien vs Predator, now known as Alien vs Predator Classic, is Rebellion's second attempt at bringing us the long rivalry between the two famous Martians in video game form. But this time it's in fully realized 3D graphics. We're not fooling around anymore. I hear a lot of people talk about this one as the first hit Alien vs Predator video game, being the most memorable and setting the bar for future AvP games. So, is it as good as everyone remembers? Or is it another janky mess that'll make me castrate myself with a Predator Smart Disc? Sticking with the formula of 3 separate campaigns because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, you have access to all the different species from the get-go. So, starting with the Colonial Marine. My first impression with the Marines campaign was that I was surprised with how fast movement is. I thought my PC was bugging out and running the game at a higher speed than it was supposed to. I was under the impression that, at least for the Marine campaign, this would be a slow-paced survival horror game, like the last one. But the action is significantly ramped up here. Your choice of weapons will extend from pulse rifles, pistols, rocket launchers, flamethrowers, miniguns, and of course the iconic smart gun, which is just so damn fun to use. Its cursor will automatically lock onto any bugs on the screen, making them easy pickings. But, to be fair, the Xenomorphs don't exactly put up the best fight at times. First off, they don't take a lot of damage. A short burst from the pulse rifle will make quick work of them, unless you're facing off against a tougher Praetorian. The AI for the Xenos can be pretty janked at times. You'll sometimes catch them running into walls or just kinda darting around aimlessly. Their strength comes from running at you in big numbers, being more derivative of aliens rather than alien. I'm not a big fan of games that infinitely spawn enemies because I like to explore and take in the environment at my own pace. And it's kinda hard to do that when you have to deal with enemies constantly showing up like pests when I'm trying to watch a damn video. But it does make it feel like you're going up against this endless hive that you don't stand a chance with. By the way, sorry there's a lot of green in my gameplay footage here. But the thing is that this game is dark as all hell. I really like the atmospheric tone of dimly lit corridors and laboratories, but god damn does it work against you in a fast-paced shooter, where you go up against multiple enemies at once. You're equipped with an infinite amount of flares, but you can only light up to 4 before your first one burns out and the rest start to follow. They illuminate enough, and even though it's a little immersion breaking, I appreciate that you have an infinite amount of them. But you're also equipped with night vision goggles, which are way more practical and make flares obsolete. So you run into the problem many of us had with the Arkham games. You have these atmospheric environments with interesting lighting, but they're completely ruined by having an intensely bright filter that's on 90% of the time. While this game certainly isn't graphically impressive by today's standards, I think it looked pretty good given the time it was released. Character models are pretty low detail, but I've always been forgiving of polygonal graphics, and it still stands true here. Like I said before, the atmosphere is where this game stands the test of time. You'll be exploring recognizable settings like a rundown colony, a spaceship similar to the Nostromo, and even the derelict spacecraft that holds the giant space jockey. However, when you're going through these levels, the hallways, labs, staircases all start to blend together. So it's easy to get turned around if you don't pay attention to where you've already been or what your objective is. Which brings me to one of my bigger criticisms of this game. Your objectives are given to you by your commander through these monitors that you find throughout the level. You really have to pay attention to these videos because they can hold vital information that give you directions to your next objective.
Damn! Did you throw all 5 switches? Main gate hasn't budged. You need a bypass kit. The engineer had one. Might still be on it. His body is in med lab on level 2. Got that? Level 2.
You'll also get a quick message at the top of your screen letting you know what your task is. But once it's gone, it's gone. There's no way to look at a mission log or journal, so you might just stand there with no idea what to do next, and hope that by wandering around, you'll eventually head in the right direction. About those videos that give you your objectives, they're also how most of the game's story is delivered. They're full motion videos, and the actors are clearly devs who filmed these in their offices. The acting is pretty bad, and they don't come off as rough and tough military leaders, and more like dorks in cosplay. That being said, these videos are endearing as all hell. And with video games now being the biggest form of entertainment, with ridiculously high budgets and big name actors becoming more common in them, we don't really get this kind of thing as much as we used to. You can criticize their acting to hell and back, but what I see is a team having fun with their project, and pouring their passion into it. I know me and Xavier can get behind that. Fighting the Predators here is pretty underwhelming. Just look at my first encounter with them. There's no structure or design to these fights. I would have appreciated if these were treated as more traditional boss fights, with a proper arena, some attack patterns, and maybe some phases. The Predators are used sparingly, but I hate that they randomly show up as if they were a random enemy. So these fights are kind of a wild card. They can be pretty tough and offer a standout moment, or they can be wiped out with little to no effort. There's even a Pred alien that shows up predating the one we'd see in AvP Requiem, but it's treated so unceremoniously. No build up, no reveal. It shows up without a moment's notice, and before you know it, it's dead on the ground. The most proper boss fight is the last one against the alien queen, but even then, you don't actually fight it. You run around pressing buttons in the right sequence to open the hangar door and suck the queen into the void of space. A cool callback to the movie, but underwhelming and anticlimactic as a final boss. Now that we've killed its mother, let's empathize with a xenomorph and start its campaign. If you thought playing as the Marine felt fast, then playing as a xenomorph is kicking speed into maximum overdrive. But to my surprise, I never had a problem navigating levels, even with the ridiculously fast movement speed of the Xeno. You also have the ability to crawl up walls by holding down the left trigger if you're playing with a controller. Again, something that I didn't have a problem with, as ludicrous as crawling up walls and ceilings in the first-person view sounds. It must be all those years of playing Spider-Man games. You have 2 forms of attacking, swiping your claws at your enemies or stabbing them with the end of your tail. You can also use the extra mouth inside your mouth? Is there a word for that? The inner jaw. Kinky. You can use that to bite off the head of an enemy's corpse to replenish health. My initial instinct when playing as a xenomorph was to play it as a stealth game. You can take out light sources to create shadows and switch between different view modes that will allow you to see in the dark and highlight enemies. However, this gameplay approach would prove to be more difficult than I expected. The enemy's AI, placement, and patrol pattern don't exactly support a stealth approach. It can be done, but I was mowed down by enemies often. Instead, I think the game wants you to play as an unstoppable, fast and furious, constantly moving force of nature, swiping enemies' heads off before they even see you coming. And that's totally in line with how the alien acts in the movies, but so is a stealth approach, and I think leaning into that playstyle would have made the Alien campaign unique and different from the other two. Out of all the campaigns, the Xenos was my least favorite. The game wants you to feel like a ferocious, unstoppable killing machine, but I never did. And that's due to how easy it is for your enemies to shoot you down. I felt so fragile as a xenomorph that I would cower at the presence of a single enemy. You can die with just a couple shots put into you with just about any weapon. I never felt like the perfect organism, more like the subpar beta virgin specimen. The Alien story doesn't have a whole lot of substance. It starts off with you protecting the hive from Marines, then just killing, and more killing until you board a ship that's heading to Earth. Along the way you get a grand total of 2 encounters with a Predator. And man, I didn't expect fighting Predators to get much worse than it was in the Marines campaign. As the Alien, you obviously have no means of weaponry, or any form of projectiles for that matter. So fighting the Predator sums up to awkwardly jumping around it while you wildly flail your arms or tail, hoping that you land the hit as you try to avoid its shoulder cannon. I can only imagine how silly this must look from an outsider's perspective. I think limiting the Predator to his melee-based weapons like his wrist blades and combi stick would have resulted in a better fight between the two. Or maybe having the fight take place in an arena that allows for you to flank and sneak up on him. And with every successful hit, you eliminate another weapon or gadget from the Predator's arsenal. Similar to the boss fight against Mr. Freeze in Arkham City. And with that, we have yet another underwhelming final boss. Alright, now let's jump into the Predator campaign. As a Predator, you have the most varied selection of weapons to choose from. You have access to his wrist blades, smart disc, shoulder cannon, plasma pistol, and a spear gun. And they're all useful. Some weapons are tied to this blue energy meter, but it can be replenished with pickups found throughout the levels. Switching between vision modes will allow you to auto-lock to different enemy types. Thermal vision for human enemies, and whatever this red vision is called for aliens. This has to be my favorite weapon in the whole game, but pulling off headshots with the spear gun is also pretty damn satisfying. What's completely useless is the Predator's cloak ability. I can't tell what the rules for it are regarding how the enemy AI reacts to it. Sometimes it seems to work, and sometimes it doesn't. I'll have it activated and an enemy from way across the room will spot me. Other times I'll be a couple feet away from an enemy and he'll be oblivious to my presence. I couldn't tell if it was based on movement, sound, or lighting. I understand that in lore, the Predator's camouflage isn't perfect. It is visible to the human eye if you spot a shimmer or light being bent and distorted. But when transferring that concept to a video game, I think there needs to be a system that lets the player know how the enemy is reacting to your presence before they're fully alert and attacking you. Without that, trying to take a stealthy approach would result in a lot of frustration. And it will make any gadgets or mechanics that are meant for stealth feel like an afterthought. I ended up ignoring the Predator's cloak ability for the majority of his campaign and focused on making my presence known and feared with the use of all my weapons. The Predator also has the most varied set of levels, offering different vistas like a jungle setting, a military base, a cavern, and even the prison planet Fiorona from Alien 3. And you'll find some platforming elements within them, which was a nice change of pace. This one was my favorite campaign of the 3, feeling fresh throughout its entire run, and having the best weapons to play around with. Now let's see if I can bring it home with an awesome final boss fight against the Alien Queen. Why is it so hard to have a good boss fight in this game? AvP Classic may not be the legendary game some fans make it out to be, but it's a solid title. Maybe some of its ideas can be refined and made into something outstanding with a sequel. And the sequel we received, this time with Monolith Productions taking the helm. AvP 2 was released in October of 2001. I'd say this is an overall improvement over the original. We now have fully animated cutscenes with decent voice acting. Once again, you have 3 separate campaigns to play through, this time with intertwining storylines. You revisit levels from different perspectives and see what the supporting cast was up to at different points in time. Stop me if you've heard this one before. A platoon of Colonial Marines receive a distress signal from a research complex where a different squad of Marines have gone missing. You land there only to find out the place has been infested by xenomorphs, and the usual escapades ensue. You also have this Kylo Ren looking motherfucker with a hard-on for xenomorph preservation. Man, playing an AvP game would make for a fun drinking game. Take a drink every time you come across any of these. The Marine campaign is a standout here in my opinion. It takes its time building suspense, you don't encounter an enemy until the second level, and it's really effective. The Alien campaign is more of the same from the first game, but the opening is really fun and creative, because it starts you off at the beginning of its life cycle. Hatching from an egg as a facehugger, you must sneak around and find a host to impregnate. Once you do, you even get to chew your way out of the guy's chest cavity as a chest burster. That's just awesome. After that, you have to find enough protein to consume to allow yourself to grow into the xenomorph drone we all know and love. The Predator campaign has you play as a youngblood. I like that you're granted more weapons from the elders as you progress, proving yourself as a worthy hunter. I think the campaigns here are more competently designed because they have a better idea of what they want to be. But man, this game gets unbearably hard at times. There are some boss fights that are straight up broken. The only way I beat them was by either getting lucky with the boss glitching out and just standing there, or by using the no-clip command. I don't know if this game is bugged out because I had to download it from an abandonware website. It's not available on Steam or any other console, but if that's not the case, I don't know how anyone beat these bosses back in the day. You can only take like 2 hits before you drop dead. Meanwhile, these guys are built like tanks. Look at this! I'm cheating and I'm still intimidated. If you ever want to play AvP 2, well, first of all, good luck, cause this thing is a pain in the ass to download on a PC. But once you do, make sure you play it on easy. I went through the 3 campaigns on normal, and I found it to be unplayable at times due to its difficulty. This game did get an expansion that I didn't even attempt to get running on this already shoddy version of AvP 2, so we'll have Xavier go over the concept of the expansion and see if it adds anything interesting. Take it away, old chum.
A neat continuation of AvP 2 is the Primal Hunt expansion. It's like a DLC, but no one's internet was good enough at the time, so it was missing that sweet, delicious D. So now it's just content. In disc form. I miss when content was in POG form. Primal Hunt sets up several plot points of the main game by showing the backstory of predators on LV120170. Hard to keep track of all of these, I wish they had proper names. The main playable alien character is a Predalien, which predates the movie's predilection for predetermined predicaments predicted by Predator predecessors and predominantly predisposed pied-à-terres. Although the gameplay is basically identical to playing as a bog-standard human hybrid xenomorph, you just see some mandibles on your screen if you take a bite out of crime. Is the Predalien the most legendarily underutilized and poorly implemented, potentially cool concept in all of fiction? Save for Boba Fett for 40 years. Except even he got a shining moment eventually. This over-designed sack of ass hasn't done a single worthwhile thing since it was conceptualized by some creative Goomba in the 90s. I like this cool part in the cave where the rocks look like a xenomorph head from a specific angle. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I thought it was worth noting. The story goes that 500 years before the start of the main game, a battle between Preds and aliens was halted by accidentally putting everyone in stasis, only for them to be unleashed when the human characters bungle their way in. If you like the main game, you'll probably dig this too. A series known for high-octane and up-close and personal battles and tight corridors and claustrophobic wooded scenery, stealthy creatures that sneak up on their prey from behind to pull them into trees and cramped ventilation shafts, scenarios where massive groups of soldiers are whittled down one by an intelligent enemy force they greatly outnumber. Yeah, this gameplay formula represents that well. AvP Extinction is the real-time Stratego simulator, a real-time with irrelevant attention-seeker Bill Maher, a real-time strategy game where low-poly models of 3 factions stand on top of each other in team formations that require a lot of clipping. What's the story for this game? Marines go to planet LV fucking whatever and find a hive of aliens, then try to fight them. Then youngblood predators show up and get involved by hunting the other 2 things running around killing each other. That's only the plot of every AvP thing ever. I could probably just copy and paste that into a bunch of other reviews here. Ironically, this is one of the very few games on this list that I can actually play myself without emulating, but I can't find a copy, and also I'm not really a big fan of this style of game. Sorry, Halo Wars and Risk Factions, I guess. I'll have to sit this one out and pass it off to Diegolo. Say something nice about this game in the first sentence, I dare you.
Okay, how about this? As a newcomer to this genre, AvP Extinction does a good job of explaining how the game works. This game's tutorial is a must. It's narrated by this super monotone voiced guy that sounds like he'd rather be doing literally anything else in the world. His lack of enthusiasm makes jumping into this game kind of intimidating, and it makes me feel like I'm watching an instructional video on how to put together a sink or something.
This tutorial will teach you the basics of playing Aliens vs. Predator Extinction. Please note that you can press start at any time to pause the tutorial and see your current task.
But following the tutorials and learning the mechanics wasn't an issue. I was also surprised with how well the game controls on a DualShock 2. I know RTS games are usually more associated with PCs, but I think the guys at Zono did a good job at bringing this genre to the PS2 and making it approachable to newcomers. Not to say they were the first to do it, but it was my first time playing a game like this. With all that said, I don't think AvP Extinction will be the game to make me a fan of RTS games. I get frustrated with the lack of control I have when playing these games. I feel like a babysitter watching over 20 kids that refuse to listen to me. Too often I will give my squad a waypoint to follow, only for me to turn away for 2 seconds and find one of the Marines straying off into their own path.
We're supposed to be a unit!
Sigma unit.
Squads will stupidly walk into mountainsides if you set a waypoint that's too far. They're not smart enough to follow a clear route that will lead to your waypoints, so you have to hold their hands every step of the way and set waypoints just a few feet from one another. I also get panicked when my squad is jumped by a group of enemies and I can't directly get involved. All I can do is watch helplessly as my children get slaughtered. I'm sorry, my hideous killer space bugs. I'm a terrible parent. I just don't have the patience for this game. A lot of the time you're just sitting there waiting for stuff to finish. Wait for the Marines to finish repairing this device. Wait for the medic to patch up your troops. Wait for the xenomorphs to drag body to the Queen's Nest. How does anyone ever achieve these timed bonus objectives? I have to say that I think it's cool that each campaign still manages to encapsulate a theme representative of each species. For example, the Marine campaign has an emphasis on having a strong army comprised of various roles like your typical infantry units, a medic, sniper, and a technician. Having a balanced team is key to survive the onslaught of aliens and predators you'll be facing. The Alien campaign is all about reproduction, dragging any life form you can find back to your nest for facehuggers to use as hosts. Different hosts result in different kinds of xenomorphs like drones or runners. The mechanics go deep into how the xenomorph biology works. Predators are about gaining honor points by claiming the skull of your falling prey to then spend on armor upgrades and more advanced weapons. It was interesting trying out this genre for the first time through an IP I'm a big fan of, but I don't think AvP is right for this kind of game. When I think AvP, I don't think large-scale wars and a wide landscape. Predators are scary because just one of them is a massive threat. Being a Marine in these situations is scary because usually you're alone, or at most with a small group trying to survive insurmountable odds. Not because you have 30 other soldiers backing you up. You might have something there with the Xenomorph's perspective. Being the overseer among a large number of aliens is an effective way of representing the hive mind concept. But again, I'd rather take direct control of a Xenomorph, or going against them right there in the heat of the action. I don't want to judge the game too harshly because the genre is not for me, but I'd love to hear what an RTS connoisseur thinks of this one.
I can't see shit down here. How am I supposed to enjoy the spooky monsters like this?
Every room in the pyramid must represent a new challenge. If we figure out what we have to do here, we might be able to move on to the next room.
That's a lot of blind assumptions based on some hieroglyphs in a dark room. I'm desperate enough, man. Just light the way with muzzle flashes. Hey, did you hear something?
Rebellion once again takes another crack at developing an AvP game with 2007's PSP exclusive AvP Requiem. Can it make up for the unwatchable, not just because it stinks, but I literally can't see what's happening on screen wreck that was the movie of the same name? Oh, you optimistic young buck you. AvPR loosely adapts the events of the movie. Our story begins when a Predator ship carrying facehuggers crash lands onto the humble town of Gunnison, Colorado. With these critters now on the loose, we have a slew of problems on our reptilian hands. This time around, we can only play as the Predator. Our mission is to eradicate all of the xenomorphs gone rampant, and any evidence of extraterrestrial life, including the crashed Predator ship and any loose parts. So your first objective is to make contact with the crash site, and blow the ship to Kingdom Come. Once that's out of the way, we go through an assortment of levels versing these aliens. What we have here is one of those games that throws a bunch of shit at the wall and doesn't do any of those things exceptionally well. It's a third-person action game with a little bit of stealth, some platforming, puzzles, and a simple progression system. With combat being one of the pillar gameplay elements, it sadly leaves a lot to be desired. It controls just fine and isn't clunky or anything like that. I was pleasantly surprised with how well controls were mapped onto the PSP. Something the system struggled with when it came to controlling the camera in 3D action games, but that was never an issue. The lock-on system works perfectly, and snapping the camera behind the Predator by pressing both trigger buttons is nifty. The problem is that combat just feels shallow and lacks that intensity you would find in a concrete jungle or hunting grounds. The honor system makes a return, and once again it's used to unlock weapons from the Predator's arsenal. Tagging enemies before killing them will reward you points, and killing innocent civilians will penalize you. The Predator has never reached hero status, but I can appreciate him showing some mercy to helpless humans when he's meant to be our protagonist. Having different Predator weapons at your disposal is always cool, but I felt like I could have kept the same loadout throughout the entirety of the game, and I wouldn't be missing out on anything special. While it doesn't do anything outstanding, I think the biggest strength of this game is its level design. There's a good variety of locales here, like the sewers, a cemetery, a school, and a hospital. Oh hey, it's those iconic set pieces from the movie. For the most part, levels are linear, but occasionally they would open up with optional paths that lead you to some collectibles. I really dig the idea of facehugger husks being this game's collectibles. It's a clever way of incorporating a classic gameplay element into the game's narrative. Switching to a particular vision mode in the biomass will highlight the facehuggers in the environment. However, that's made completely obsolete when the game straight up marks them on your map. A nonsensical decision if you ask me. There's a charming simplicity to these levels that never makes the game offensive, but by the same token, it's also the game's biggest setback. The issue is that from beginning to end, the experience is one big lull. There aren't any revelations or curveballs that keep things interesting. There's a strong lack of enemy variety. 90% of the time, you're fighting standard xenomorphs. At one point, it seems like they're setting up the dog alien hybrids from Alien 3. When you find what I guess is supposed to be a dog, its chest is burst open, but the embryo matures into a regular old xenomorph. You do get to fight Praetorians, and they take significantly more damage, but 3 enemy types just isn't enough. No boss fights either. Actually, there is one final boss. I'll give you 3 guesses as to who it is. An alien queen? Good guess, but no, she's killed in a cutscene. Maybe a souped up marine in an exosuit. Nuh-uh. A pred alien? Logical, but nope. It's against a helicopter. That's right, these sons of bitches pulled The Division on us and made a damn copter the one and only boss. You know what? Maybe it's a pred alien piloting the helicopter. Right? Right? Aww. What baffles me is that Rebellion had full access to the complete script of the movie, and even an early cut of the movie before its release. Why not include what's arguably the coolest part of the movie? Well, according to an interview by Cam Shia from IGN of Tim Jones, head designer at Rebellion, when asked about how the game ties into the film, he stated, "We had to work within strict confines to remain consistent with the movie, and everything we did had to be approved by the studio. There are also some key strong differences between our game and the movie because Fox didn't want the entire plot given away before people see the film at the cinema." Okay, so AvP Requiem the game released on November 13th, 2007. AvP Requiem the movie released on December 25th, 2007. Merry frickin' Christmas, hope you weren't naughty that year. I understand not wanting to spoil the movie ahead of its release, but why not wait the extra month and release it alongside the movie? Give yourself the extra month for polish, and more importantly, you get to have the pred alien in your game about the movie that has the frickin' pred alien in it. And Fox, why are you being so protective over AvP Requiem like it's frickin' Citizen Kane? It's Aliens vs. Predator. It's a silly movie. And now you have a silly game. They both suck. Congratulations.
Holy fish paste! Get it off me! Get it off me!
Hey, you know that annoying thing where a series gets a new installment after a long time gap between sequels and the new one doesn't have a number or subtitle? Well, here's Aliens vs. Predator, which is like the 6th or 7th game to have that title. Fuck me. So this game, once again, has 3 campaigns that are all fairly short, but make up for it when you add them all up. One is a rookie space marine whose face you only see a few times near the ending, a young predator, eager to wet his claws with the blood of dangerous prey, and a xenomorph who likes killing things because that's all these silly double-mouthed things are good for. Let's take them one at a time. Doomed Marine. So our story begins with Carl Bishop Wayland, the guy from the AvP movie, somehow alive again after hundreds of years and a slight spelling error on his driver's license, entering a buried pyramid on an alien world, not unlike the one we saw in the film. This causes some hijinks when his Weyland-Yutani workers end up unleashing the horde of aliens while trying to breed them for bioweapons. And opening the pyramid has also alerted a group of predators to come by and jump in for an impromptu hunting trip while on the way back from an intergalactic booze run during Space Mardi Gras. And both of these hijinks cause even more hijinks when one of the Weyland workers calls in the Space Marines to come in and fumble the space football at every turn, as they're known to do. Might as well mod this game so these guys are stormtroopers. As the Marine, you fight your way through aliens upon aliens upon aliens upon aliens, encounter a single predator and kick his ass in like 2 minutes, and then encounter some more aliens! This is basically an early version of Colonial Marines with a special cameo from a predator halfway through the game. Except, unlike Colonial Marines, this game is functional without 2 years of patches. And it's kind of fun, and knows how to build tension, and isn't hideous to look at. While Colonial Marines came out 3 years after this, it feels like it came 6 years before this. AvP 2010 knows how to pace out its action with some slower moments to explore and build tension and jump at shadows for a bit. Sometimes you're just exploring environments and finding audio logs in the dark by yourself, and it's unnerving and spooky, instead of just constant jittering noises and screaming. Using the pulse rifle and other guns from the Space Marine arsenal doesn't feel as shaky and weird, and still has this panicky feeling because the enemies take a lot of damage before going down without feeling too spongy. You really get a sense that the aliens are stronger than you because of how much more punishment they can take from your superior firepower, which was a great decision for making sure they didn't feel like weak cannon fodder. Any individual xenomorph can be a serious threat, and a crowd of them is pretty anxiety-inducing. You always have to keep moving and stay one step ahead of them to make sure you don't get flanked or ganged up on. This combat really works for an Aliens FPS game, but I haven't played any others beyond Colonial Marines, so I can't compare that much. The characters on the radio pressure you to hurry up towards objectives so often without realizing what the fuck you're going through. Bitch, these hostile space animals are covered in armor-piercing bladed weapons and have acid for blood and take like 30 shots to go down. Do not tell me to hurry up, I have problems out here. There's a little bit of gunplay against military androids near the end of the game. They feel like bullet sponges in like an annoying way, where their bodies are heavily armored and you need to aim at their limbs to really do anything, and it just takes forever. Your guns aren't that precise. And even if you kneecap the androids, they still keep shooting at you, so you have to keep pumping them full of ammo, only for them to explode a short while later when you thought they were finally dead. They also have a tendency to kill you in 2 hits if you get too close to them. They're just really annoying and aggravating to deal with, and I wish we had more Predator boss encounters instead of these guys to deal with. And they're not nearly as memorable as the Working Joes in Alien Isolation. Fuck them. Alright, so after a lackluster story mode, you end up in the underground pyramid for the final encounter. And who could that final boss be? I want you to guess. In this Aliens vs. Predator game, what the final boss is. Who do you fight in the big explosive finale? Could it be the alien? Could it be the Predator? No, you fool! It is I, PS3 era graphics Lance Henriksen with a shotgun! So you find out that he's a bishop android that was programmed with the memories of the original Weyland and went out into space to keep excavating Predator shit for corporate profits. Even though human Weyland in the movie was kind of a nice guy and really just got a bit too ambitious for his britches because he wanted to do something impressive before his lung cancer took him down. His Simon Jarrett over here is a ruthless bad guy for some reason. And so is the next one, because even after you make him go the way of the T2, he has a backup Weyland ready to sequel bait us.
It's everything we'd hoped. Worth waiting centuries for. The coordinates to the Xenomorph homeworld.
Wow, that'd be pretty exciting if this got a sequel. Add yet another bishop to the endless ranks of them spread across this franchise. Now for the other two campaigns. The Predator's gameplay is kinda cool in concept, but once again executed somewhat awkwardly. I don't really vibe with the first-person perspective just because mobility is so much more limited now. Jumping around from treetop to treetop seems like it'd be a little barf-inducing for some people. The basic mechanics are all here for the Predator to predat. You can turn invisible, charge from batteries to get more energy, lure marine NPCs around with the voice distraction, and blast them with various weapons. Concrete Jungle would have definitely benefited from a weapon wheel like this instead of that slow, horrible menu bullshit. You play as a different Predator who runs around through the same levels as the Marines in a different order, hunting down soldiers in various stealth segments, destroying bodies of Predators who weren't as cool and handsome as you, and collecting ancient Predator tech that'll make you more proficient at literal headhunting. Even though the traversal was a little uncomfortable at the start, I eventually got used to it and had a lot of fun stealthing around and doing my best Sub-Zero impression with all these Space Marines. It reminded me of Arkham-style stealth segments where you're distracting guys, picking them off with stealth takedowns, and hearing a voice over the intercom asking Gerald over there if his spine is still connected. God damn, this is pretty gory. Once again, I wish that we could have had a Predator game with the gameplay style of Hunting Grounds and the story of Concrete Jungle, but maybe with the stealth encounter layouts of this game on top of it. It's also nice to be able to sneak past enemies at times and skip whole fights on your way to more important objectives. Things get a bit clunkier though when you have to fight aliens because they're so fast and you're so big and lumbering. First person brawling with your wrist blades feels stiff as hell and wasn't really fun, so I went out of my way to avoid it typically. The only unique boss fight in this campaign is the good old Pred Alien, who for some reason has super strength and can ground pound so hard it makes the level layout change like he's a God of War boss. Much like all other bosses in this game, however, he's a bit of a pushover. All you gotta do is get into a good combo of pokes and stabs with the wrist blades and he eventually goes down. Conceptually, the Pred Alien is cool, but every time we've seen it, it's been utilized in such lame ways. I can't get over it. The story is pretty basic and underdeveloped in this campaign because they like to keep the Predators themselves mysterious, so having any of them be characters or explaining their culture or motivations more clearly would ruin the mystique of them. So there's not a lot to go off of. You collect armor and gadgets from some legendary super badass Predator from a long time ago that everyone loves, and then use those gadgets and weapons to blow up the temple and head on home. You thought the motion sickness was bad before? Alien time, bitches! You play as one of the aliens being harvested for Weyland-Yutani's experiments, a special little guy named Number 6 with a tattoo to that effect. You're an adorable, friendly space cutie who loves to play with everyone you encounter and do cool Spider-Man shit. If you think about it, Spider-Man is 40% xenomorph because he can climb on walls, and when he mates with someone, they also die. The movement on walls is very disorienting at first. Sometimes I'll accidentally walk on a wall and my spatial awareness will get totally thrown off, leading to me getting blasted by these buster-ass humans. Sometimes if you need to crawl around in a very confined area, you might end up accidentally walking on the ceiling and floor without even trying. Come on, I'm just trying to turn a corner here. Jesus, I feel like I'm in a spin cycle. I'm gonna throw up! I do, however, like the tail attacks and the smashing of light bulbs to hide yourself. That feels like a really direct inspiration from The Darkness, with your bladed tentacles breaking the fixtures to make the game harder to see. However, your vision always adjusts to the dark and you have a great sense of your surroundings with the ability to sense humans through walls. I also like that you can slowly put a face hugger on people as a finishing move. That's scary and fucked up. There's not as much to talk about with this one. Number 6 runs around killing humans and a handful of predators, then evolves into a big queen, and we sure do love her. This is by far the shortest campaign, and weirdly I like that about it. I think I may actually not like this game. Overall, the campaigns in this game are a little short and underwhelming on their own. Playing them all back to back may get a little dull because you're just running through the same levels, but at least you get to see them from a new perspective each time because each character plays so differently. And admittedly, the multiplayer for this game is still pretty fun if you have enough people to fill a server. Here's some highlights of that.
People, let me tell you about my best friend.
Is it always this dark as a Oh, there's my friend.
Predator.
Oh, that's it.
Is that you, Xavier, right there? Okay. How do I sprint?
2 predators.
There we go.
Did you see those 2 predators run up on me and I beat their asses? That was great.
Holy shit, that is some big dick stuff. Oh, behind us, Xavier!
Oh shit!
I got him.
I think this might just be deathmatch.
That's not a human.
Like, as in, everyone's an enemy. Everyone's an enemy.
Really? Oh! No! So fast to turn on me! I saw Xavier slowly face me. I was like, what are you doing?
That's why the auto target kept happening in the last match. It's because we were all enemies, but we didn't know.
Oh my god, that was cold.
So fast.
There's a predator in me!
Good times. Now back to you, Diego. Thanks, Xavier. Oh shit, I have 2 in a row? That hasn't happened in ages. Okay, so Mortal Kombat is a series that I haven't talked about in a while because no one watched my review of Armageddon. But I should have had a script prepared. Cyrax, Sector, and Smoke are very obviously based on the Predator visually, so fans spent decades wondering what it would be like if the real deal got to be in the game alongside them. And seeing as how Mortal Kombat's newest trilogy slowly turned into Smash Bros. But with 80s characters, the opportunity finally arrived. Now there's 2 armored badasses with dreadlocks that can do horrible things to your ribcage. But hey, you can't have chocolate without a little peanut butter, so they tossed in a xenomorph that spawned from Baraka. That's a pretty clever workaround for giving the alien a more muscular superhero physique to fit the game's preset animations. Cause the normal alien is too much of a weird lanky dog skeleton thing, and it'd be strange to see someone fighting it hand to hand. Plus he's got Baraka blades for a few extra moves cause he's a Tarkatan hybrid. That's neato. Both of them have some pretty creative and on-brand fatalities. I like how the baby alien looks like an alien version of whatever it's growing in, including having a tiny Jason mask or even being a Predalien. While it's unfortunate that the indecipherable black screen with sound effects that was Requiem managed to kill this franchise so definitively by its awfulness, AvP still lives on in our hearts and in crossovers with other brands. Between this and BroForce and Fortnite, aliens and predators can still be seen in mainstream games kicking each other's asses, and I suspect we'll see a more proper crossover with them again sometime soon. Did someone say BroForce? BroForce is the video game equivalent of me being sneaky about getting unlicensed music in my videos by just talking loudly over it and not having a ton of spaces between my sentences. You can't get sued for copyright infringement if you change their name to Bro something and give them a slightly different belt. And as such, dozens of muscular 80s action heroes come together in this chaotic side-scroller shooter. Every time you rescued another character from these cages, you get to play as them with an extra life. After hitting a certain number of rescues, you unlock new characters such as Predabro and Ellen Ripbro. These names are obviously nowhere near as perfect as Brobocop, but damn it, they tried! You eventually unlock a level called Alien Pheromones, where you play as Ripley shooting her way through legally distinct alien hives with various types of not xenomorph enemies. You can even get face-hugged as a death animation. There's also flying aliens that explode into acid when they hit you, and obviously the standard one. Aliens being a one-hit kill feels kinda right to me. You're just too dangerous to have an extended grapple with unless you're a superpowered Mortal Kombat character. However, you can also battle aliens as the Predator, assuming you don't die as soon as you spawn as him. When you get a chance to play as the Predator, he can use his trusty glaive to make platforms or pin enemies to walls so they can
stick around.
His special ability is to turn invisible and use his plasma caster to clear the screen of enemies. I grow tired of this endless prattle. My ceaseless effort and professionalism is never reciprocated by the likes of the proletariat.
Rest in peace.
That would have been a lot cooler if I could have seen what it looked like while it was still alive.
more ancient technology.
Since the radio's dead, maybe we can use this to signal for backup.
Well, before the comments complain, this was my phone at one point. I'm not that young.
Well, you better figure it out fast.
Mobile Games Lightning Round. AvP Combat Evolved, my third favorite game after AvP Modern Warfare and AvP Revengeance. It's a carbon copy of Rampage with digitized graphics where the alien and predator have giant heads and little bodies, but they also have giant everything because here's a normal human for scale. Why are they so big? Who saw Alien and Predator and thought, hey, here's a good game style we could apply them to? Literally anything would have worked better for this except maybe a kart racer. So you might as well have just done Pac-Man. Oh wait. AvP 2004. It's like a side-scroller where you're in the pyramid from the movie, I guess, and it looks awful. Just the worst. I bet one single person in the audience remembers playing it when they were like 2 years old and will cuss me out in the comments because it's secretly the best game ever, like usual. Whatever, shut the hell up, I don't care, f*** you. AvP 2004. Also, I can't... This is from the same developers, I think. The footage for these is so uncommon, but this one's like a pseudo rail shooter or something. It has 3D graphics, so that's impressive for a flip phone, I suppose. AvP Requiem. It's a top-down hack and slash, I guess, where you're an alien running around killing stuff. We couldn't find something more interesting to end the video on. I wish there was something like a new game or something we could talk about. This is really lame.
Well, I got one more mobile game for you. In 2013, AvP Evolution was released for iOS and Android devices. Mobile games have a bad reputation, being known for plaguing your screen with ads, trying to nickel and dime you every time you open the app, and they also tend to have a really shallow gameplay loop. Marvel games! But Evolution is a totally valid third-person action game. It's like a better version of AvP Requiem, because not only does combat feel better, but you also get to play as the alien. I think this might be the only game that lets you play as the alien in this perspective, save Fortnite. There's a bunch of upgrades and customization options to unlock. You can even play as the Predalien, if you bought him before the game was delisted. Yeah, it's another one of those situations. This game had a couple of cool features when it was up on digital marketplaces, like giving players the ability to record gameplay clips and use their phone's built-in camera to add commentary. You can then upload those clips to a social hub, but if you try to do that now, you'll just get this sad message. Aww. The story has some cool ideas. Super predators are seeking to control xenomorphs by capturing the alien queen. They're also taking out the lesser, regular jungle hunters, cause they're a bunch of assholes and think they're hot shit. I like this concept, because not only do we get the expected battles of xenomorphs versus marines, predators versus marines, and of course the title of the fucking game, but also cool matchups like predator versus super predator, and alien versus mind-controlled aliens. At the end of the game, the predator slays the alien queen and stops the super predators from enslaving the xenomorph species. The alien takes out the super predator, but not before attaching a facehugger to its ugly mug, resulting in the birth of a new hybrid unique to this game, the Berserker Xenomorph. Sick. AvP Evolution is not a great game. It suffers from repetitive gameplay and levels that look identical, and of course touchscreen controls in 3D games are a damn nightmare. But there are a couple of decent boss fights and some set pieces to spice things up a bit. It was only $3 or $4 at the time of its release, and I see some genuine effort here. At the time of this recording, this is the latest AvP game, and it sucks that it's been delisted from marketplaces. But hey, you can play it on the Ouya if you have one of those. And you thought the Atari Jaguar was going to be the most obscure console to show up in this video. Ooh, yeah. Support for this hunk of crap ended in 2019.
Well, battery's dead.
What? That was like 3 minutes!
Yep. Maybe the challenge was finding bars in the corner.
We're running low on rounds, and there's still a lot of space bugs down here. What do we do now?
Cowering under a desk usually helps. Wait, that's it! Dubious licensing issues! Those online servers were hanging on by a thread! All we had to do was wait for both franchises to fall into limbo because of licensing and legal battles. time eventually does destroy all 80s horror characters.
Whoops, sorry.
Wait, no!
Aliens Fireteam, available now. Review coming soon.